Alright guys, today we're going to talk about the D750, the Nikon D750. It's one of my favorite cameras of all time. I'm not the first person to call this the Goldilocks of DSLRs. It is just right. I mean, it is on the expensive side if you're comparing it to crop sensor cameras, but for the amount of features, for the capabilities you're getting with this camera, just for the sheer image quality, the dynamic range that you're getting, this camera is worth it and continues to be a better and better deal as Nikon discounts them, clearing the inventory, making way for the new D780s. These are appearing on the used market so often now because wedding photographers are, finally biting the bullet. They're giving up with the pandemic. They're selling their gear. The D750 is increasingly finding its way into the hands of amateur photographers. And let me tell you guys, this could be the camera, the last camera you ever need. What photographers refer to as LCS, last camera syndrome, is very strong with this camera. Okay, the D750 will push you, will challenge you. It will be a while before you can exceed its capabilities. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and then finally, guys, I want to show you some sample pictures. They're not going to do justice for what you can do with the D750 because I'm not a professional, but I just want to show you that you can get completely acceptable results with this camera. You don't need to spend many thousands of dollars on these new mirrorless cameras. I don't know where we would even begin. Is it the amazing 24 megapixel FX sensor in this camera? Okay, that's an absolute beast at low light and gives you performance, great performance up to ISO 10,000 and above. Is it that? Is it the amazing dynamic range that the sensor provides? Is it the ergonomics of this camera? Okay, the reason I even decided to buy this camera, I walked into a camera store and I literally just tried to hold every camera in there, and this one was the most comfortable DSLR, and that's why I went with it, guys. I mean, that's my criteria these days because all these cameras are really, really good. So you want to pick one that just feels right in the hand, and the D750 is just right. It's not too heavy, it's not too light. It, surprise, surprise, weighs 750 grams, 1.65 pounds. It's got a big, bright viewfinder, full frame style, not your puny DX viewfinders. Got a convenient diopter adjuster here. It's got all the modes that you're used to. Of course, this is a professional DSLR, guys. It's used by wedding photographers and portrait photographers. It's a favorite of theirs to have two D750s. It's a reliable workhorse. I mean, the shutter expectancy, I believe, is 150,000, but these guys will keep on trucking to 500,000 maybe, or even past that. It's got two memory card slots. Okay, I know people go crazy now if a camera doesn't have two slots. This camera has two slots. You don't have to break the bank to get that second slot. Two control wheels, very important, like in any professional DSLR. Top LCD, very convenient. Also, I don't know if you guys can see, lights up at night for nighttime shooting. Your exposure compensation button, your metering option button, this record button, which is used for video, but which many people remap to change the ISO. Okay, because I don't shoot much video with this guy. I like to have separation of church and state, so I like to have separate devices for video and stills, but you can absolutely use the D750 as a hybrid video shooter solution. Okay, shoots beautiful 1080p 60 FPS video, so this is the record button. But I've remapped this to change the ISO because for me, that's just a lot more convenient to have it right there because there's no dedicated ISO button. Auto exposure lock, autofocus lock button here, which I have remapped to AF on or back button focusing. Got a nice handy selector here for single shot, continuous shooting low speed, continuous shooting high, quiet, continuous, timed, and mirror up shooting. Okay, when you want to really reduce camera shake on a tripod. So typically I would shoot either in single shot or continuous high if I'm doing something like action. Very convenient menu, very extensive actually. I mean, entire videos are required to go through all the different menu options on a D750 or any of the Nikon DSLRs. The nice thing is that if you're used to one Nikon camera, you only really have to learn the menu once. There's a lot to consider. I think largely the default settings are okay, so you don't have to worry about that. Now the LCD tilts up, which is really why I decided to buy this camera over the D600 or the D610. I really like the tilty LCD because I'm a lazy person and I don't want to get down on my hands and knees if I'm shooting low to the ground or something like that, so I can just shoot with the LCD screen like this in live view mode. Okay, you can always activate live view using the live view button. Okay, so I've just put on the 70-300mm DX lens onto this full frame camera. It turns out it's possible to use DX lenses with full frame cameras. No one is going to come arrest you, and you can get great results. Watch out for my video about the 70-300 DX and how I use it on my full frame cameras. This is the live view. As you can see, it just takes a while to focus, so it's a little clunky. Not as fast as focusing in normal mode that is not without live view, but still entirely possible to get decent results using live view shooting. The construction is very nice on this camera. Even though it's light, it still has a lot of magnesium parts in it. It is dust and weather resistant, splash proof. I have no problems using this in light rain. I wouldn't take it out in a typhoon. Light rain, light snow is not going to trouble this camera. Got your metering mode. I usually shoot it on matrix metering, which is the one where the square is pretty much all filled in. Okay, you've also got center weighted, spot. Okay, I usually shoot it in matrix metering mode. Nikon has largely figured out metering, and they've had a few decades to do it. It's pretty accurate. Exposure compensation button, very handy. Okay, I use this all the time when the metering gets tricked, especially in the snow or in the desert, environments like that. More buttons at the front of the camera. Okay, you've got your bracket select button. You can do bracketing, exposure bracketing. You've got your flash, and then you can also adjust flash exposure compensation by holding down this guy and spinning the control wheel. Function button, you can remap this to whatever you want. I have remapped this to add a horizontal level in the viewfinder, so I know when my pictures are level or not. And then this is usually the depth of field preview button. Again, you can customize this to whatever you like. So you have a lot of customization options. You got the selector down here to switch between autofocus and manual focus mode. The center button here, if you hold it and then spin the control wheel, you can quickly select your autofocus mode. So autofocus automatic, whether it decides by itself whether the subject is moving or it's still. Autofocus single, still subject, or autofocus continuous for wildlife, sports, that kind of thing. Usually shoot in autofocus single. Long battery life, I think I mentioned that. Decent 6.5 FPS continuous shooting. So let me just demonstrate to you guys. We set it to continuous high. Okay, there you go. It's not going to win any awards for continuous shooting. It's not going to stand up to the beasts like the D5, D6, or D850 for that matter, but it's still very, very capable, and in a pinch you can absolutely use it for birds in flight, wildlife, that kind of thing. Takes an optional battery grip at the bottom. Believe it or not, not every camera these days does that. It's got 51 autofocus points, a lot to choose from. I mean, it's just packed with features, guys. Compatible with a lot of Nikon lenses, including the older screw drive lenses, because it has a little screw drive motor. Okay, see this guy down here? It powers screw drive lenses that don't have their own focus motor built in. Okay, so what's bad about this camera? So honestly, there's not much. The shutter speed only goes to 1/4000th of a second. Okay, so this might be a factor for some of you if you're shooting in very bright conditions and you need to get to 1/8000, or you just need to shoot stuff that moves really, really quickly. There is no electronic viewfinder. Okay, it's a DSLR optical viewfinder only. The autofocus in live view is fairly slow, as you guys have seen. Just put on the live view, and we zoom in on something, and we autofocus. Okay, it takes a while. Okay, it's not that snappy. So that's a potential downside. And as I was saying, there's no dedicated ISO button, so I've remapped this record button to change my ISO. The continuous shooting of 6.5 frames per second is decent, but obviously it's not fast enough if you are doing professional sports or wildlife photography, so you would probably go with something else for that. And that's about it, guys. I mean, if there are some glaring negatives that I forgot to mention, let me know in the comment section. But by and large, this is an extremely capable camera. Okay, so these are some sample photos. I've done a little bit of light editing on them. You know, I'm not a professional, I'm just a hobbyist. I've traveled with this camera, I've used it on hikes, I've used it day to day, I've sort of put it through its paces, but you know, I have not used it professionally. With that said, I'm able to quickly get very impressive results, all handheld with this camera, even in extremely low light conditions. I've shot the camera up to 10,000 or 12,800 or even a higher ISO, and with a little bit of noise reduction in Photoshop, you can get completely usable pictures, which is just wild. I mean, this thing is a low light monster. People have been saying that in terms of low light, this thing is on par with even the more expensive Nikon bodies just because of this amazing sensor built in. You can use this camera for just about anything: architecture, portrait, landscapes, product. And with the 24 megapixels, even if you crop in, you're still going to be okay. Just because there are new and shiny mirrorless cameras out doesn't mean the D750 doesn't work anymore. It still delivers stunning results, and I think professionals will still be using this camera for 5 years or more. Okay, well that's it from me. Just wanted to say a few words about one of my favorite cameras of all time. Let me know what you think in the comments section. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.